There's a team, and I swear they still exist. They weren't in the playoffs last year, but I swear the Pittsburgh Steelers still exist.
It starts here, so it always starts. The camp is built on the premise of iron sharpens iron.
We're here to grow and develop individually and collectively, and when you're in my position, you better be open to being pleasantly surprised.
You are looking live at St. Vincent College. Where would you rather be than right here, right now? Good afternoon, Steeler Nation, and welcome to Training Camp Live, brought to you by FedEx. I'm Mike Prisuta, joined by former Steelers offensive tackle and current Steelers sideline reporter Max Starks. We're going to be doing this every day here from the Steelers' summer home, St. Vincent College. When the Steelers practice, we'll break it down for you beforehand, and then after they practice, we'll wrap it up for you in the immediate aftermath. Craig Wolfley will be stepping in for the post-practice shows. But, Max, great to see you. Welcome back. I'm sure you've missed these halls, these dorms, this environment.
No, it is a pleasure to be back here in St. Vincent's, in Latrobe, and, of course, at Chuck Noll Field now, as we affectionately know it. The guys had a great warm-up practice session, and it brought back a little bit of the chills when I was watching this morning. And now it becomes, well, acclimation, not reclamation for this team. Let's get ready for what the season's to hold. And it starts out here today. And I'm excited. We got fans out here. It's going to be a fun time.
Should be nice and hot the rest of this week here in Western Pennsylvania. Mike Tomlin will be a big fan of that. But before we start breaking things down individually and getting into the real minutia, I wanted to ask you about something that Mike Tomlin said yesterday that really piqued my interest. Somebody asked him, how are you going to fix the red zone, or words to that effect? And he said, I have no idea, seriously. And then he talked about how, plans are great, but if you have too hardcore of a plan in an environment such as this, as Tomlin put it, you miss something. So you have to be open to being pleasantly surprised or disappointed. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that from the player perspective or the ex-player perspective. Obviously, coaches spend the offseason deciding how they want to play offense and defense. Obviously, practices are scripted. Obviously, roles are envisioned. But how much stuff actually changes when you get out here and actually start playing the game, and then you find out who can do what you thought they could, or maybe who can't do what you thought they would?
Yeah, I mean, you come in with a plan, right? You come in with a template of, hey, this is what we want to run. We have 7 different run plays. We have 6 or 7 different pass plays. How do we deploy them? What personnel group do we want to get on the field? And when you ask for an answer, I think we kind of got it early in the draft by going and getting a Broderick Jones, saying that the offensive line needs some help, and also getting a guy by the name of Darnell Washington, who is a 6'7" mammoth and a red zone problem. So now you incorporate that with your existing personnel, and I think we're going to see a lot bigger people in that red zone that can do more little people things, is really what my first outside looking in type of 30,000-foot view is that right there.
Do you recall anything one of your years coming here where you thought, okay, we're going to end up doing this, and you ended up doing that, and it really worked well for you?
Well, I think it was Matt Spate's rookie year, and Heath Miller was already on the squad, Jeremy Tubman was already on the squad, and I was like, oh man, we're going to go more 13 personnel. We're just going to grind it in there, and then we end up running like passes off of it and running them in shallow crossers, and Heath going to the corner and everything.
Jens Jets, you mentioned the draft a moment ago, and there are a lot of storylines here. I'm sure one near and dear to your heart is Broderick Jones. And
possibly.
Probably everybody watching this show is wondering a lot about Broderick Jones. He's not the only storyline, but as the number 1 pick, he gets top billing. What do you think? Is he going to be the starter against San Francisco? Is it going to be Dan Moore's job to lose all season? Is it a bye-week transition? Everybody has acknowledged they drafted Broderick Jones for a reason, but nobody has said hey, here's the job. Let's see what you can do. He's got to earn it, right?
Yeah, he's got to earn it. And I think one of the biggest things I'm going to be looking at is incremental progress, making sure that he's doing the little things right. But I'm not going to write off Dan Moore because Dan Moore has something that Broderick Jones doesn't. That's experience, time under pressure, and he played 17 games a year ago at that position. So it's going to be a tough one for Broderick to overcome, and I think that's what makes it even more of a daunting task is that you have to go and take that job from Dan Moore if you're Broderick Jones, and if you're Dan Moore, yes, I know the Lamborghini's behind me. I know everybody wants to take a test drive on it, but guess what? Old Faithful here, it starts every time I put the key in the ignition. So he's going to have to continually show that he's not pressured by what's behind him and constantly looking forward to make sure he does the best job to be one of the top 5 for this offensive line.
It's been a busy day and a half already up here at St. Vincent College. Cam Hayward spoke to the media today. The players arrived yesterday. Let's take a listen now to the best of the sound so far at St. Vincent College.
What is it about camp for you?
What is it about camp that I love?
Yeah.
I think it brings out the best of everybody and the worst. You know what I'm saying? You get to see how people respond to the difficulties of camp. You know, the long hours, the long meetings, the tough practices. But I feel like that's when you get to learn who you are as a team and as a unit. So I think that's what I like.
There's another big investment that you guys made to your defense. You know, considering what you guys are spending there, what kind of expectations do you have for yourselves?
To be the best we can possibly be, and that starts with today, just everybody being here. But defense is so huge on building continuity and understanding where everybody is, and not only just your job but everybody else. And that's why it's so important to have these team meetings and to be able to gel off the field too, so that we're in the stadium with 80,000 people screaming. We can just communicate through hand signals and eye contact.
There's a lot of teams around the NFL that are spending big on offense. You guys are taking the opposite approach with spending big on defense. Is that the key to having success in the league, kind of zigging while everyone else is zagging?
They've always said defense wins championships, so I hope that's right.
How much does dorm life in this environment help that bonding?
Yeah, I mean, the team camaraderie is huge here. Just, everybody, in the dorms and spending time with each other, like late at the meetings at the snack, guys playing games together, guys just – it's just really cool. That's one thing that, we came here last year. That was just really one of my favorite parts, was just being here with the guys the whole time. And, consistently bonding with the guys was awesome.
Your focus last year was on being better against the run.
Mm-hmm.
What's the focus this year defensively?
Being better against the run and the pass. I think we stopped the run a lot better this past year, but wasn't number one. The goal is to be the number one defense.
It's now our pleasure to welcome a very special guest to Training Camp Live. That would be Steelers President Art Rooney II, who is joining us here on the first day of practice. Art, good to see you. Welcome back to your summer home, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be back at St. Vincent, and many years here, so it's always fun to get started, and looking forward to a great camp.
It is always fun to get started, and yet this year it seems especially so. We heard Mike Tomlin yesterday talk about how much he likes to feel in the air. Your general manager, Omar Khan, talked late this morning to the media and talked repeatedly about how good he feels about the team at this stage. Are you as fired up as those guys seem to be?
Yeah, I am. I think our team is, most importantly, I think our players are looking forward to getting started this season, and our fans are really excited, it seems. There's a great buzz in the air around town and a good buzz here at camp. So hopefully we'll get off to a good start.
Mike Tomlin also asked yesterday if he's getting a contract extension this season. Sometimes traditionally you guys have done that in the past at this juncture. Omar Khan talked about it today and said, hey, he thinks he and Mike are going to be here a long time whenever that might be forthcoming. Can you update us on that situation and maybe what the plan is?
We've done the contract at different points, and people seem to read more into that than is warranted. The contract will get done, when it needs to get done, and I do, as Omar said, I expect Mike to be here for a lot longer than the existing contract, and so we'll get it done when the time comes.
Mr. Rooney, I wanted to ask you, as we look at some of the first images of training camp, we're looking at what are some of the things you're most excited to see over these next 4 weeks or so from the guys that are down there, and of course the newbies, the rookies. What are you looking forward to?
Well, certainly, I would say two things. One, the second-year guys, Kenny in particular, we're looking for guys, as Mike always says, you look for a pretty big step from year one to year two, and so we're looking forward to trying to see that. And then, the new guys, we were excited about how the draft went and how some of the off-season acquisitions went. So seeing how all those guys come together and really develop as a team, that's going to be fun to watch.
One of the points that Omar made today was that the team has been created to be kind of a team for all situations. And he referenced what he called a shared vision. He said there was a lot of talking between himself, yourself, and Mike Tomlin, and you guys kind of all put this thing together for, how you wanted it to look. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's I think when you go into a year, we start right after the season. We start to talk about evaluating the roster and evaluating what we need to do in the off season, and so we come up with priorities, and I think for the most part, we were able to follow what those priorities were throughout the off season, and that's part of the reason why I think we feel good about where we are today, and obviously a long way to go, and a lot of miles to still travel to see how it all goes. But I like where we came out of the off season.
Now, Mr. Rooney, you said obviously this is one of the places you've been coming for most of your life. I mean, there's a hall named after your family here on the premises. Can you kind of just share with us just some of your fondest memories of coming up here to St. Vincent and, the rite of passage that it is for every young Steeler coming into the league and kind of your perspective?
Look, I think St. Vincent, number one, is a special place, and obviously it's been good to us. We've had a pretty good record since coming to St. Vincent, and not so good a record before we started coming here. So for whatever that means, it's been good to us, and so we've loved the tradition. I was fortunate to be here as a ball boy when Chuck Noll came and kind of got to see the change that Chuck brought to the organization, just the change in attitude, and it was it was around the same time as when we first came to St. Vincent. So a lot of changes occurred there, beginning in the late '60s into the early '70s, and it was fun to kind of be a young guy around observing guys like Chuck and my dad, my uncles, Bill Nunn, what they the foundation they kind of put in place. Some of that started here at St. Vincent, and so this has been a good place for us to build the foundation for a team every year, and so that's what makes it special.
Art, you mentioned you have miles to go in this process a moment ago, but once you get out of here, you have miles to go. You're going to the West Coast a couple, 3 times, Thursday night games. When the schedule came out, what kind of got your attention in terms of navigating the challenges of it?
Yeah, well, we obviously knew we were going to be making some West Coast trips, and so one of the things you kind of hope for is they at least spread them out, which they did. So can't complain about too much about how that fell. We do have 2 Thursday night games, so not my first choice, but as Mike says, we want to be the kind of team that's getting invited to prime time time slots, and so that's where we are again, and we just have to be prepared no matter what day of the week they ask us to play. We played on a Wednesday afternoon a couple of years ago. You got to be ready whenever they tell your numbers up, come play, and you can't worry about the schedule too much. You just got to play it week in and week out.
Well, Art, we really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. Looking forward to navigating those miles right along with the Steelers this year.
Thank you very much. Good to be with y'all.
Steelers President Art Rooney II here on Training Camp Live, brought to you by FedEx.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum. Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Welcome back to Training Camp Live, brought to you by FedEx. Mike Prisuta along with Max Starks. We are here on day one of training camp, and we will continue to be here when the Steelers are practicing here at St. Vincent College. Max and I will be here for the most part to get you ready for the action, and then afterwards we will also have the wrap-up show presented by the UPMC Health Plan. Craig Wolfley will be the guest there. We just enjoyed our visit with Steelers President Art Rooney II, and of course some of the narrative there. Max was talking about St. Vincent College and great relationship the Steelers have with this facility. You can see by the shots presented, the crowd is filing in, and this is a Thursday afternoon here in Pennsylvania.
In
well, I
shorts
guess
and T-shirts.
Everywhere else, but
yeah.
And they're not in pads,
Yeah.
but the fans showing up as they always do. Omar Khan talked today about getting up and going for a walk this morning at 7:30 and seeing cars lined up.
Yeah, cars are ready. I mean, the Steeler fans are looking forward to this moment where they could see the first glimpses of potentially this new 2023-2024 Pittsburgh Steelers squad. And they were chomping at the bit. I mean, after Wolf and I got off the air from this morning and we're walking up the hill, I mean, we had a 20-minute autograph session for fans getting here that early for a practice. It doesn't start until 2 o'clock, didn't start till 2. So the fervor, the fever, the fandom is full effect today.
With the exception of the left tackle situation, which I'm sure is at the top of your list, what's got your attention? What are you zeroing in on? What do you maybe have a question about that you need to see resolved before you start getting really excited about this team's prospects?
So I have two. I have two that are kind of 2A and 2B for me. One was the offensive line, but, 2A is going to be outside linebacker depth. You bring in Marcus Golden, you draft Herbig, and you're hoping to see where some guys can fill in Quincy Roche at that outside linebacker position, and can we provide depth? Because one of the things we know last year, the team struggled mightily when T.J. Watt was not in that lineup. And we had to switch some things around. That's when we found out DeMarvin Leal could rush from the edge. All those good things, but at the end of the day, how do you line up and how do you have a wave of two sets of outside backers who can put pressure on the football, or as what Craig Wolfley would say, the get near guys and the get there guys. We need more get theirs than get nears.
A couple reactions to that. DeMarvin Leal, one of those guys, I referenced Mike Tomlin's comment at the outset of the show, you better be open to being pleasantly surprised. I don't think he knew he could do all that stuff.
No, but once again, desperation breeds innovation, right? I mean, some of the best inventions in life came out of desperation. You ask Benjamin Franklin, he's like, well, before I figured out the light bulb and electricity, I found out 99 ways not to do it. And so for DeMarvin Leal, figuring out in pressure, how can I get on the field? How can I make an opportunity for myself? Boom, he runs down there and he finds a role as an elephant type end where you're having a big 3-down line that's shifted to look like a 4-down, so you get Alex Highsmith on the field. So it's those creativity moments where you see Terrell Austin and Carl Dunbar kind of working to figure it out, but you'd like to have the base be too deep at all your positions.
Yeah, I mean, you saw him play a lot in college as I did. You saw him inside and you saw him outside on the D-line.
Yeah.
You didn't see him drop into coverage because he never did that before.
Yeah, exactly. It was see ball, hit ball. And to come in here and say that, you know what, I can still grow, right? There's still a ceiling for me was something that was awesome to see. Now, I hate that he got injured and it kind of shortened his progress, but that's what we're expecting this year is to pick up where you left off and continue to build and give a lot of different tools to put in that toolbox, and you never know you need it until you do.
Yeah, I had a chance to listen in the tail end of his little media scrum that he did when he reported, and, man, is he a confident kid now. I mean,
yeah.
Now he's done it, and as I put it, if I'm remembering correctly, he said, I know who I am and what I can do.
Yeah. That's all you can
That kind of changed. Is that why they always talk about the first to second year bump as being the biggest in most players' careers in terms of where you make the quickest and the most improvement?
It is, because now that you've done it, you've put it on film, you can see it, you can watch it, and go and say, okay, well, if I go do this a little bit better, maybe I get around the edge, and then you go try it. Now he's had those reps, so now when he gets on the field today and when we get to pads next week, guess what? He's not confused. He's not guessing about what I should do because he knows what he should do. Now it's determining how I do it, and that makes life a lot easier when you get to the how phase of implementing your craft.
Speaking of second-year bump, there's Kenny Pickett back to pass as he warms up. A lot of big expectations on Kenny Pickett's shoulders. So he is also going into his second year, and I got to tell you, he won me over last year, Max. I mean, when they made the draft pick, my thought was, hey, if you like the guy this much, go get him. You know, because the position is that important. I was not anticipating him taking over as quickly as he did or playing as well as he did at the end of the year. I think his train is rolling downhill.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kenny came in. He took the situation. When you come in at halftime of a game and you're already – it's a tough proposition. And, yeah, he threw some early interceptions. But what I loved about it was the tenacity, right? He didn't get too down on himself when you looked at him on the sidelines. He was invigorated. He was engaged, and he figured out, I'm going to get in somehow. And that's when he had rushing touchdowns. He's like, well, if we can't throw it in there, I might as well rush it in there myself. And from there, you really saw the growth, the progression. You saw the patience in the pocket. You know, I think back to that Miami game. Down in Miami, I mean, that was a game back and forth. And eventually, you know, they didn't win it, but it really showed the resolve because he was making clean passes. You know, guys just weren't catching them. They were hitting guys in the hand. But you saw his ability to kind of shake off a bad play, or if a play doesn't go the way that he wants, you didn't see a huge emotional response. It was kind of like he got more and more focused. And I think that's what led to really that second half of the season just surging through and having a lot of confidence at the position.
Yeah, I think that game was a turning point for him as well because he didn't finish it.
Yeah.
Had a couple chances to I hear people talking about Kenny Pickett's statistics for, 2/3 of a season as a starter, which, you know, they were kind of mundane, kind of pedestrian. But my point of reference is in that Miami game, he had a chance twice to complete a game-winning drive at the end and steal the game, and he threw an interception each time. Later in the season, against the Raiders and against the Ravens in Baltimore in the weather, the same opportunity materialized. Touchdown, and 2 W's. I don't want to hear about the statistics. I want to hear about whether you win or lose the game. And I think that's what's going to define him, particularly in the early part of his career.
Yeah. Well, I think it most definitely, you know, is going to define it because at the end of the day, we're in a results business. You know, we're not worried about the window dressing. We're not worried about points. This isn't the college football playoff, right, where you have to win in style. You have to do things to a specific degree to make other people happy. At the end of the day, all Steeler fans want, all we want is W's. I don't care how you get it. I don't care if it's a bunch of field goals or it is an onslaught of touchdowns. But as long as a W comes when that clock hits 0 in the fourth quarter or overtime, that you have more points than the opponent, that's what really matters. And that's what I think Kenny Pickett is also focused on. He's not focused about the style points. He just wants to win.
Probably going to have to be both at some point, right?
For what?
You might have to have a track meet with Cincinnati, and you might have to have a street fight with Baltimore. It just works out that way.
But as long as it's a W.
Yeah.
As long as it's a W. It doesn't matter. Listen, if I get punched in the face, but my guy's laying down on the canvas, I won. I might not be able to see the win, but as long as they hold my arm up at the end, that's all that matters. And that's what a Baltimore Ravens game is going to be like. But you're right. It's going to be a track meet. This division is very tough because you look at the quarterbacks that's in it, and so you have to make sure that you match suit to what those opponents bring to the table.
Let's take a look at some tweets now, if we can. You can tweet us here at SteelersLive.com. And, Max, why don't you I'll read the questions and you do the answers.
Okay, sure. Here
we go. Is that a good way to run this play? Which position group are you most excited to watch at #Steelers Training Camp ?
All right. I'm going to go with tight end group since I've already named 2 groups already. That's my third one on the list. That was 2B, tight end group. I want to see how Darnell Washington fits in with Zach Gentry, Pat Freiermuth, and Connor Hayward and how they kind of figure it out. And also Rodney Williams. You know, there's going to probably be 3 guys that go at that position out of the 5 that I listed. So how do they come in? How do they look? And how do they progress?
I'm going to go with inside linebacker.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because you know, for a number of reasons, it's been tough to find Ryan Shazier's replacement. Not the least of which among those reasons is Ryan Shazier was such a special player. But I really like Cole Holcomb. I like his body of work so far in the NFL. I like his career track. I think he's an ascending player. And I think if he plays well and can be a three-down guy, that's going to solidify what I think will be a very good defense.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot because it's how do we rebound at the secondary? You know, you bring in Joey Porter Jr., you sign Patrick Peterson and Keon O'Neal, so you know that's going to be a highly contested one. Who's going to fit in? Who's going to fill in for Cam Sutton? Is it Joey Porter Jr.? How's the safety position look with KZ and Minka with no Terrell Edmonds there? So there's a lot of great competitions, but I think the two that we looked at, those are two that are going to be very variable points of interest.
That wide receiver group's interesting as well. I mean, all of them are, but you know, we're kind of ranking them in early importance here. But you got George Pickens, a guy who you expect to get that second-year bump and hopefully be your downfield threat. And they've added a veteran in Allen Robinson. But Calvin Austin III, guy who
all over again.
Flashed out here so briefly and then missed the entire season. Now, his narrative in the springtime was, hey, I might have not played, but I was paying attention. I was around. I don't feel like a rookie. Thought he looked really good this spring. What kind of expectations can we or should we have for Calvin Austin III?
Well, he had some epic battles against DeMonte KZ, and I think that's really what allowed us to shine on KZ and understand how special he was because of what he did against Calvin Austin and what Calvin Austin did against them. Made them both must-watch guys when they were playing. But I think Calvin Austin, he's the guy that's going to add the speed. He's going to be the guy that blows the top off of the safety coverage when they're trying to bracket. You can't play single high on him if he's in the inside slot because you will pay. And so if he can stay healthy, that can be another tremendous element to this squad to go out and show that this offense is starting to really kick it up into the next stratosphere.
You know, a couple of us were talking with Najee Harris. I can't remember if it was one of the OTAs or mandatory veteran minicamp. I think it was minicamp, but Harris was asked a very generic question about, you know, what are you looking forward to seeing? What excites you about the offense? And he went unprovoked to Calvin Austin. And some of the points you just made, he thinks he can be a unicorn, is what Najee called him, and a guy who stresses out defensive coordinators because they're going to have a hard time figuring out where he lines up and how to deal with him once he gets there.
Yeah, well, I think you think Tyreek Hill and Antonio Brown as far as for reference about what he can be deployed as in this offense. He can be the move guy in the slot. He could probably get a couple of ISOs because of the speed and draw one-on-one coverage. Then also, you know, when you're sending out 3 and 4 wides, he can get lost in the coverage if they're playing zone. So there's a lot of utility and a lot of versatility with Calvin Austin III to be implemented in here. Because imagine you put Allen Robinson, you put George Pickens in, and then you have a Darnell Washington in there or a Pat Freiermuth. It's like pick your poison. Then Calvin Austin's going to go there right in the slot. Now you've got problems because do you have the height to be able to try and combat him, which you sacrifice speed, or do you sacrifice speed, then you worry about the other twin towers that are around him. So he can even be a decoy or he can be the number one option.
You know, when you look at that group, you see a lot of potential, but this is also a team that's going to want to run the ball. And if you were with us for our visit with Steelers President Art Rooney II, you know, we're back to the team for all seasons type of thinking and the vision of, you know, run it and control the clock at the end of games, control the tempo of games, but also have combustibility, quick strike ability. How difficult a balance is that to achieve? Because you guys, when you played, you kind of went both ways. Sometimes it was run, and throw it once in a while just because, and sometimes it was throw it all over the yard.
Well, I think it matters on how that team makeup is and where your quarterback's at. Because I think that's another thing is, you know, what Kenny Pickett recognizes to be able to move them into the best play possible. You know, as he gets more and more comfortable, Matt Canada sends in 2 plays at a time to where you have a run-pass option. And it's either what we would call a kill play or an option play. You know, having that in the offense to where it says we're coming and lining up and run, but if we don't get the look we want, we should have a pass that comes off of that. And that's the next level is can Kenny Pickett digest that and see that in a very reasonable amount of time, because that now makes your offense more multidimensional and makes you more threatening. When you have to come up, you line up, and you have to run the play that's there, even though it's not the best play, that's when you get into trouble. And I think that's going to be big for Kenny recognizing having the autonomy to switch out of plays and move forward as a team. Not quite to the level of Ben Roethlisberger because, Ben had 18 years to really get perfect at it. But for Kenny Pickett, it's going to be just some simple ones, a couple of specialized group settings, and I think also deploying a lot of 2 tight end sets to make sure that you do get the run that you want when you do call it in.
It seems like they can do a lot with those tight ends. And, I don't know if we still call Connor Hayward one or not, but
he's the Meatball Express.
All those guys on the field, I think Gentry has come along nicely in his career progression. He can catch the ball as well as block. We know what Pat Freiermuth can do. Darnell Washington is here to move mountains, and Hayward can do a little bit of everything. Is the key to that run-pass option kind of philosophy that you just outlined, the tight end position?
I think it is, because I think if you have that right segment of tight ends, now 12 can be 11 because you can go flex out Pat Freiermuth and stick him in the slot.
You're talking about 12 personnel?
Yeah,
or
12.
11.
Yeah, 12 that can turn into 11.
And for the uninitiated among our viewership, explain that number stuff.
So 12 personnel means you're going to have 1 running back and 2 tight ends. We always assume the wide receivers fill in whatever is left to make it 11. And 12 personnel is 2 tight ends, 1 running back. 11, 1 tight end, and 1 running back. And then 13 personnel is going to be 3 tight ends and 1 running back. So how you deploy that, if Connor Hayward is the wing in a 13 personnel, and you have 2 tight ends in there, now you can do a couple of things. Say you're motioning Connor in the backfield and you split out Darnell Washington. Well, who's going to go take him? It's going to be an outside linebacker, 1 less guy to rush. So there's a lot of different things that if they show themselves to be as good as we think they are, that now presents a nightmare when you're running no huddle. And you can run 3 wide receiver sets with not 3 wide receiver personnel. Somebody's going to be left out on the defense. And it's going to be a mismatch problem that Kenny Pickett should be able to ID. So all of those things kind of play into themselves, but really the linchpin is how versatile your tight end group and how healthy they are and how they mature into this system.
Kenny Pickett talked a little bit yesterday, Max, about having a little more influence, a little more say, a little more input
leadership
into what they're doing.
Yeah.
I asked him if that was going to happen this season. He said, well, it already has. In the offseason, we had great discussions, and it was a great process of, here's what we really like or what we really did well. Let's keep doing this. Here's what we didn't do well. Let's get rid of that. Do you envision it being a case where he can come to the line of scrimmage and, based on what he sees, call a run or a pass?
I think the way that it's leading up to, and we'll see here in camp when we start hitting the live stuff, but I think that is a natural expectation to have for him, because a lot of quarterbacks usually in year 2 now get the training wheels taken off, and now they can run a no-huddle offense that's not 2-minute. And I think that's the expectation and the goal for Kenny Pickett is we want to have your own on-the-go, as you call it, made-on-demand type of offensive suite of plays that you can go out and implement at any point in a drive just to change things up.
Are you thinking pass the score, run the win, or more of a balance throughout? You know what I'm saying? Running when you have a lead in the second half. You're a little familiar with that, right?
Yeah, I've done that a time
Close
or two.
out the fourth quarter and just grind the game down to dust, or do you just keep taking what they're giving you all day long because you can do either?
Yeah, I think it's take it as they show it. And I see that philosophy because, let's face it, points have come very hard by this team over the last couple of years. So if you can now start to put more points on the board because there's a visible mismatch, and it doesn't matter if it's the first quarter or the fourth quarter, being able to continually apply pressure on the opponent is something we haven't seen. I think that's what all of them will relish and hope to get to, that point where, we could score at will, and we're going to score at will because other teams did it to us.
You see Matt Canada having a little chat with Kenny Pickett, the rest of the quarterbacks in close proximity there, including Tanner Morgan, the rookie from Minnesota, number 5. But there you see Mason Rudolph, number 2, and there you see Mitch Trubisky, number 10. I'm a little surprised that quarterback room didn't change personnel-wise, and I think it's a big edge that it didn't.
Yeah, I think it is. I think when you look at it, there's a lot of consistency from a year before in that picture. But you're right. I think that now goes to really showing.
Not to cut you off, but can you explain to me, what is this, a recovery, fumble drill?
Yeah, so if you miss the snap and you're backing up, how to jump down on the ball.
So no detail too small. We're gonna work on this.
Everything. Look at that. They got guys around punching at them. I mean, very softly. But also, did we notice? Look at those jerseys. How snazzy is that they got the yellow sleeves on there now?
Kind of like that. They did that for a stretch back in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was a sharp uniform. It was a white jersey and then gold with a little black trim and a black number.
That's nice. I mean, the nuance to show the guys you're not allowed to hit. I mean, that looks really fancy. But I don't know if I'm in the midst of a moment and I see a yellow sleeve is going to tell me to stop, though.
You getting anything out of that fumble recovery drill, or are we just killing a little time here?
We are killing time with this. I mean, but it is something that I think is important, right? Because if you don't rep it, you'll never know. So why not put something out there that, hey, I don't intend on this happening, but if it does happen, let's be prepared for it, guys. Let's not act like this is a brand new thing and you're now trying to play with the wet bowling ball, trying to squeeze it. Let's practice just getting on top of it and covering it on all four sides.
It amazed me, and this goes back years, but I can't remember the first year I noticed this, but before the first preseason game, they were actually practicing the victory formation kneel down.
Yes.
And I think people would be surprised, particularly if you haven't been out here to a practice previously. Man, there's no detail too small for some coaches, right? I mean, you rep it so you can say I've done it, and you should be expected to know how to do it.
Exactly. You should. Yeah, exactly. We've now physically done it. Yes, we've talked about it in the meeting room. We've drawn it up on the board. It's in your playbook. But let's go out here and physically rep it, because also it sets a mindset, right, Mike, that we plan on being in this position, so you need to know it. The victory formation is something we're not just running at the end of half to get out of the half and get into the locker room. We want to run this in the fourth quarter when it matters, and that means we're kneeling down for victory.
There's another look at Kenny Pickett. All eyes are going to be on him this preseason, but it's not just about Kenny Pickett. I think it's about collective growth and an offense, Max, that is kind of in position. These guys aren't all the same year, but a lot of the skill guys are pretty close to the same year, and the potential to grow collectively
is going to be huge for all these guys. Right, you're talking about Kenny Pickett, second year, Pat Fryermuth and Najee Harris, both in their third year. Adding in a Darnell Washington, Calvin Austin III, who's in his official second year on the team, but first year as far as playing experience, opportunity. And then you look at a lot of the offensive line. Broderick Jones is a rookie. Dan Moore is a third-year guy. Chuks Okorafor is the leader of that group, but you brought in some veteran help along with it in Seumalo and James Daniel last year, Mason Cole. So to see how this team, Kevin Dotson is still a young guy. So there's a lot of youth in this room that you can really draw on. And then, of course, George Pickens out on the outside in his second year, looking to pair a sizzling sophomore year along with Kenny Pickett.
Seumalo is a guy that I don't think's been over-discussed in the offseason, but what an acquisition. Maybe I was seeing something I wanted to see, but when I was going down to OTAs or minicamp, I just knew when he was around.
Yeah.
I knew when he was in the locker room. I knew when he was in my immediate vicinity where I happened to be on the field. The guy's just a presence.
Yeah, and he doesn't say much either.
No.
Isaac is a guy, he's not going to talk much, but know that he knows everything. That's the assumption you must carry around him at all times. And he's one of the guys that Jason Kelsey raved about him. Other guys on his team raved about him. They were mad when he didn't come back. That's the type of legacy you want to have. And he's a guy that playing that left guard position is very important. Not only are you a guy that's going to have to be able to move in a lot of the counter game, but he's a guy that's going to be relaying information to the center. If he sees something, being able to help change plays, and he presents that type of knowledge, skill, but also tough, tenacious, and very physical. He is a powerful human being, but he is the strong but silent type on that offensive line.
Yeah, and he seemed to be highly regarded right away in the locker room, just listening to the other guys talk about him and the impact he has on them and the leadership he may provide for this team.
Well, and Pat Meyer said it best. I was talking with him earlier. He said, listen, Coach, I came here to play football, and that's what you're going to get from me. And when you say that, a man of very few words, very efficient in his words, but you could feel the conviction in him when he's talking about that. And I think that's going to be a much-needed boost for this offensive line when you're talking about the reshaping of it. And another point, he's one of 52 new faces out of this 90-man roster that's out here at camp. That's a huge turnover. So when you can find a guy who can come in and fit right in, like you said, get the instant credibility. That's a huge way towards building chemistry for your offensive line group.
Huge turnover, and yet I look at this team as one of continuity to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are those things mutually exclusive, or can they be both?
They can be mutually inclusive because your nucleus stays intact, right? And I think that's what you're seeing when you look at it. You're seeing the continuity because all 5 offensive linemen that started all 17 games last year, they're back. The quarterback that started 13 games for you, was on this roster the whole season, back. All your backups in the quarterback room, back. Running back room, back. Tight end room, additions, but back. Defensively is where we kind of see a little bit more of that turnover because the secondary is not the same. Then the linebacking group has changed a little bit, but you're still your same defensive lineman. The front 5, Highsmith, Watt, Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, Montrevious Adams, all those guys are still there. So there is those moments because the nucleus is intact, but it's a lot of the outliers that have changed around this squad.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin was asked about that yesterday, the bulk of the new faces on defense, but he said it's, paraphrasing, he said it's a non-issue because they're all veteran guys.
Yeah.
Doesn't anticipate it being a problem when they step into stadiums, whether it's Holcomb or Landon Roberts, the linebacker from Miami, or Patrick Peterson. They have guys who have played in
O'Neal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have guys who have done this before.
Sullivan.
Sullivan, another one.
Sullivan. They're not, pulling guys off the street.
Yeah. No, it's not college football free agents, right? You're getting vets and quality depth from the league.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about, Max, was Alex Highsmith, who was awarded a contract extension, agreed with the Steelers on a contract extension just before training camp. 14.5 sacks last year, and he thinks he can do more. And T.J. Watt thinks he can do more. And Omar Khan thinks Highsmith is an ascending player. Dynamic duo in place now?
Well, I'm hoping it's just Batman and Batman. I'm hoping there's no Batman and he needs a Robin.
Well, Mike Tomlin said elite Robin. Does that make you feel a little better?
I mean, which one are we talking about here? I mean, are we talking 1960s Adams West type of Robin, or are we talking are we talking about?
Wasn't my favorite Robin. No offense to Burt Ward.
Yeah.
Tough role to play.
Tough role to play. Or are we talking about like George Clooney, right? I think when you have it, you can have the Justice League. You can have Superman to play with Batman, because I think T.J. Watt can be Superman, but you have Batman there with his utility belt and his avarice to make sure that he could continually be competitive with him. So you can have both on the same team, and I think this is probably one of the more elite dynamic duos in the NFL this season coming into it, based off production.
Yeah, back in the spring, Denzel Martin, the position coach, the outside linebackers coach, talked about how when this team was at its best, it had Watt, Highsmith, and Dupree.
Yeah.
And now with Marcus Golden as that number 3, I don't know who was Robin's second fiddle.
Was it Batgirl?
Well, let's not go there.
Let's not go there.
They need 3, right? Because
they need 3.
Even if they stay healthy at the position, you need to rotate. You need to keep that aggressive pass rush.
Yeah. Well, and think about this. When I played, I had Joey Porter, Clark Higgins, and James Harrison was the third.
Yeah.
Come on. What else do we need to say? And then when it was Clark and James, you had Lamar Woodley as the third. And so there's always been a depth guy that's rolled in. And so hopefully Marcus Golden can come in. He can be that guy that can be the third rotational, I can play anywhere on the field type of player. But then you also realize, you need to see what a Quincy Roche can do, right? You need to see what other guys can contribute to make sure that you have a good elite 2 deep at that position.
Yeah, Highsmith talked about get off and finish as the areas he can improve. You can always come off the ball a little quicker. And then he said he left some sacks on the field when he got to the quarterback, just didn't get him on the ground.
Yeah, that was the get near, not get there. So let's see a little bit more get there. And then also, I forgot to mention Nick Herbig.
Look at him leading the way here.
Look at that. Come on, Highsmith. That's what new money looks like. Lead the way. Lead the way. Come on. But, yeah, and once again, where were these jerseys when I was practicing? They got black sleeves on the yellow. I mean, this cool two-tone combination. I didn't get that. I mean, I'm wearing the yellow. I guess I'm representing defense today with this shirt on, but I'm still an offensive player at heart. I promise.
I'm representing myself. I wear black.
You are the man in black.
I'm the man in
little
black.
Johnny Cash there?
Yeah. That's going to do it for us today for pre-practice show number 1. I want to remind everybody that we will be back when they get done doing what they do on the fields at St. Vincent College with the wrap-up show that is presented by UPMC Health Plan. My partner in crime for that program will be Craig Wolfley. Max, great job for starters. We started strong. Let's do it again tomorrow.
I think we should do this at the same exact time tomorrow. That we
same
did today.
bat time, same bat channel.
There it is. Keeping the theme.
For Max Starks, I'm Mike Prisuta. You have been watching Training Camp Live, brought to you by FedEx, right here on Steelers.com.